Hello, everyone. This is Sean with Visibility Software, and welcome to today's customer success journey. We're going to be chatting with Rita Harris, HR Manager at Greystone Power Corporation. We're going to talk with her about some of her challenges. Yep. Go ahead and say hello, Rita.
Hello, everyone.
We're going to do introductions so you'll learn a little bit more about myself and Rita. We're going to talk about some of the challenges in recruiting that she faced and some of the training challenges that she faced and kind of her selection process for software that would help those challenges and help make life a little bit easier for her. So starting off with introductions, not going to read through all of the information on the screen here, but you can see that both Rita and I are pretty dedicated HR people with lots of HR background experience. Currently, Rita is the HR manager at Greystone Power, and I think you've been there since 2014. So I guess you're coming up somewhere in that 4-year anniversary. Prior to that, Rita was at Greenberg Arrow for 16 years in HR, and that's where Rita and I first met. She had some recruiting challenges at her prior company, and she selected CyberRecruiter as her applicant tracking system and found that it was a great fit. When she moved on to Greystone, she had some of those same challenges, and we're going to talk about that today. She's also an ardent supporter of Sage HRMS as her core HR solution. So she had that at both Greenberg Faro and at Greystone Power. So let's go ahead, Rita, and let's talk about and kind of jump in the meat of this, which is some of the challenges. And I know there's lots of them that you're faced with, but let's look at the top 3 and start off with the first one that you were faced with at Greystone Power. And that's basically the manual applicant review process. So you guys were doing everything manual. Tell me a little bit about what you were doing and how, kind of how painful that was.
That's correct, Sean. We had a manual applicant review process, so applicants could apply online through a forms system that we had here at Greystone. But the actual applicant review process required that we actually print the applications, review them in HR, and then make copies of the ones that we were going to be sending on to the hiring manager. So it took a lot of time and resources to print all of those, the paper, the ink, and then to, manually go through them, evaluate them, and make copies of the ones that we wanted to forward on to the hiring manager. So it was just a real inefficient process that we had.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you had people applying electronically, so it appeared as though it was more sophisticated, but when it came down to it, you were printing, routing physically a piece of paper to the managers and having to do really everything offline.
That's correct. And for our entry-level positions, sometimes we get 100 to 200 applications. So it was quite a process.
Gotcha. So once you went forward with CyberRecruiter, tell us a little bit about, what some of the benefits of putting CyberRecruiter in related to the manual side of things.
So the result, the end result was that we could make faster hiring decisions because we didn't have as much clerical time spent in the process of printing and making copies. And with the dashboard of CyberRecruiter, you're able to quickly look at an applicant. Did they complete the application? Did they answer any screening questions correctly? And so you can immediately screen out, people in the process by having those queries and filters set up as part of the application process. But it's also much easier at a glance to look at somebody's, education, experience, and skills and see if they are qualified for the job. So you're spending much less time reviewing the applicant and much less time in trying to get the applicants to the managers to review.
Gotcha. All right. So it sounds like not only was it able to help with, you're spending a lot of time on the front end. Now you were able to really share the information. All of it was online, and you were able to not worry about it getting lost. Were there any ability to remind people automatically? Did that help also within this Cyber Recruiter product?
Yes, within the system, you could track where anything was in the process, and so you have the ability to remind a manager that they haven't responded about a certain applicant as to their interest, or that later on in the process, you also have the ability to remind them that a requisition hasn't been approved, or that a hiring approval hasn't been approved by someone, and so it lets you at a glance see where everything is in the process versus having to run around to find the paper on somebody's desk.
Gotcha. I think that leads us right into the second one, which, speaking of paper, you had too much paper. It was easy for a job requisition. So the first part was the applicant side of things was all manual, paper-based, but the requisition side was also manual and paper-based. So tell me a little bit about some of those challenges. I mean, you just said it a second ago, but it sounded like it was hard to keep up with them. Whose desk was it on, and what were some of those challenges that you faced on the recruiting or on the requisition creation side of things?
So we would get a lot of complaints about human resources saying the process takes too long. And one of the things was that the process did take too long, but it didn't take too long because of what we were doing in HR. It took too long because we would route the paper forms for approval, and somebody that would be out of the office, and it would sit on their desk for a week before they signed it and sent it on to the next person, or we actually even had times when the forms got lost and we didn't know where they were at in the process. So it was incredibly frustrating for everyone in the process. So, with Cyber Recruiter, we were, able to, again, route those forms electronically. And at any given time from our Cyber Recruiter dashboards, we can go in and look and see where the process is being held up, and send out reminders to say, hey, can you take care of this? You're holding the process up. So it just really streamlined things and made it much easier for us to track things.
Gotcha. Well, and I think, it sounded like you had, everything was manual related to the applicants. Everything was manual related to the requisitions, and all the paper and keeping track of it was definitely a big challenge. But I think it was important what you said a second ago, which was you didn't really know where things were being held up. So the belief was that it was HR taking a long time, but it was all of the other people involved in the process and the lack of insight, which I think takes us to your third biggest challenge, which was reporting. So tell us a little bit about, not only the compliance stuff, but all reporting. What was life like prior to Cyber Recruiter?
So prior to Cyber Recruiter, because everything was paper-based, it was very difficult to do any kind of reporting on time to fill, reporting on cost to fill. It was just very difficult to do any type of metrics or quick grab reports for, that management may want to see. But even more important in this day and age is the compliance side of it. And, as a power company, we are a government contractor, and so we had to do affirmative action reporting, and it could take up to 6 months for us to compile our affirmative action report. And with Cyber Recruiter, it's been great. We've been able to work with Visibility and the Cyber Recruiter team to develop a report that our affirmative action provider wants, and we just go in and run the report, and it pretty much dumps the data out of the system the way that the affirmative action reporting company wants to see it. And so again, we went from having a 6-month process to having, maybe a week-long process of printing the reports and just fine-tuning the reports before we send them off to our affirmative action company.
Well, and you mentioned not only the compliance stuff, but you mentioned the word dashboard. So you're able to kind of have a dashboard of metrics and be able to view that at any time?
Yes. So
all right. Go ahead.
You can set up, the key things that you want to look at that are important to your company. You can set up, those so that you can just go in really quickly and look at those items and do screen prints or give your executives access to be able to see those items at a glance, and you're not spending a whole lot of time compiling reports and sending out reports to them.
Great. All right. Well, it sounds like CyberRecruiter has made a big impact and solved not only these but several other challenges that you were faced with. Let's move over into the training management side and look at some of the challenges that you were faced with here, so that those that are listening can understand and hopefully identify with you and some of the pain that you had, and we can talk about the solutions also. So the first one that you had mentioned was too much time being spent on the data entry, creating that new employee training record. So tell us a little bit about the training that you do or that you need to track, and kind of how long it took you to do this type of a process.
So we have an internal university at Greystone where we do all of our competency training and a lot of our technical training in-house. And so training was already something that was, a key part of the HR department's role. So with, we were using SharePoint to run our class registration, but the person in charge of Greystone University was having to track the registrations from SharePoint and the actual attendance of the class to record the training attendance in another database that we had. So it was just a lot of manual data entry that was happening. So again, it was just incredibly inefficient and difficult for HR to focus on, the key strategic issues. It was just incredibly administrative and clerical in nature.
Gotcha. So once you end up implementing CyberTrain, describe how that automated some of this process. I mean, from the core employee data, but also the training information. So tell those that are listening kind of how this impacted that particular challenge.
Okay, because we use the CyberRecruiter to hire our employees. The employees are hired directly from the CyberRecruiter product into our Sage HRMS product. And then from the Sage HRMS product, it created a training account or a training record for each employee in the CyberTrain product. And so we were able to, just really streamline the account side of it, as well as the registrations take place through the CyberTrain product, and all of the training records are recorded in the product under the employee's name. And so we weren't having to keep the registration records and the actual training records in two different locations. We were able to centralize that function. And then the employees had the opportunity to be able to go in and enter any off-site training that they attended. So if they went to a SHRM conference or to some type of engineering conference, they're able to go in and enter those records. So they're all in their one centralized training record in CyberTrain.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you took a couple of different systems and the data was kind of spread out at different places, very inefficient, allowed you to centralize it and then be able to share that information. Would that be accurate?
Correct. So all of the
right.
employees now have access to all of their training records, so they can control what they do outside of Greystone, and then they can also print and have access to their records for training within Greystone.
Gotcha. All right. So that sounds like that made a big difference just in the efficiencies and the sharing of information and being able to automate a lot of pieces. The next item that you had mentioned when we chatted was related to your actual training that again, you were doing things, you had to schedule it. It was kind of a big event and it was a lot of logistics and it was kind of challenging. Tell us a little bit about your compliance training, what it was like before and after the decision to move forward with CyberTrain.
So Sean, there's kind of two pieces of this. Part of it is our safety training. We have a very strong safety culture and we do safety training every month. A large part of that safety training is OSHA required. And so we needed a good way to be able to track and report that. Prior to getting CyberTrain, our safety director kept up with the OSHA training records on paper. And so it was a very difficult process. If you ever wanted to look at, was a certain employee never attending training? So all of our safety meetings are set up inside of CyberTrain, and they don't actually register for them. All the employees are kind of mandatorily registered for those, and then we go in and indicate who attended and who didn't. The second piece of that is compliance training for like HR things like ethics and code of conduct and anti-harassment training. And so we were able to, instead of having multiple sessions of anti-harassment over a week and a half or 2 week period, which I had to repeat myself, 5 to 8 times doing multiple sessions, we were able to record that and put it in CyberTrain on demand, make it a requirement for the employees to complete every year. And it just really streamlined the process. So when our outside guys have rain days and they are outside restoring power or installing new lines, they have a rain day. They have the ability to make use of that time by sitting down at the computer and doing their compliance training. So, we were able to, again, streamline the compliance training process of both record keeping and utilizing the ability to have on-demand sessions recorded and run them through CyberTrain.
Right on. Okay. So it sounds like there was, like you said, there was 2 points to that, and it really helped in both areas. The last item that you and I had chatted about was, was related to, not only all of the creation of records, which was the first one, kind of your ongoing challenges regarding the training and the tracking of your safety and other types of training that was required, but also being able to manage all the certifications and recertifications. So tell us a little bit about how that was being done prior to CyberTrain and how CyberTrain helped make that less painful.
So prior to CyberTrain, I had referenced that we had another database that the training coordinator was entering all of the in-house training in. And so if someone needed their training records for recertification, we would print that or export their information and send it to but it was, a tedious process to weed through, the time frame that the records were needed, all of the employees. With CyberTrain, the employee is able to do that on their own. So if they have a recertification coming up, or they need to submit their renewal for their professional engineering license, they can go into their own training record and print the information that is needed to submit with their renewal application. And HR is not having to be the one to, filter that. Of course, I will say that, for the professional engineering licenses, it's up to the employee to enter the stuff that they do outside of Greystone. And so the record is as complete as the employee makes the training record, but we strongly encourage all of our employees to input that information into the system so they have one place that they can go to. But again, it's just been really helpful. It also allows us to be able to track if there's a particular job required or company required certification that's about to expire. We can set up, notices so that those deadlines don't come and go and nothing was done to make sure that that person was recertified or got the training or submitted their application. So, that's a great functionality that CyberTrain has as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, it sounds like Cyber Recruiter and CyberTrain were both solutions that not only made HR life better, but all of the other people that are involved in processes, the hiring manager, senior management, reporting, compliance, the actual, employees could access information. So it sounds like it was impactful in a lot of different areas.
Yes, it has made life so much easier, and one thing that I'll add is that, the products have been a great match for us. But, there's tons of features in these products that we haven't even begun to really tap into yet. So, there's a lot more things that we plan to leverage over time that we haven't had an opportunity to yet.
I think that's a great comment. I know we're going to talk next about kind of the other factors and kind of your buying journey, if you will, or some of the things that were impactful in that. And the comment you just made, I know, is going to be coming up again in a second. But I think this is a valid point. I think when you're doing everything manually, just automating some of that is a huge time saver. It's relief of stress. It allows for more insight reporting-wise. But you're never really done, are you, with the tools? You start off on the first layer, if you will, and that automates some of your processes. But there's some other things that you can do with the products that I guess are maybe more advanced, or maybe a secondary phase. Would that be accurate?
Correct. I would say that both of the products that, we got, maybe the first and second layer implemented, and, there's additional layers of functionality that, we haven't fully tapped into yet. So, there's plenty of bandwidth and ways to be able to continue to grow the use of the product for the department. I know with the CyberTrain product, one of those things that we hope to continue to be able to work on is the tuition reimbursement management process. So, again, even just things like fine-tuning your reporting and going to your management team and saying, okay, we've provided the basics, but what else would you like for us to provide for you in terms of reporting? So we just feel like there's a lot of room to grow with the products, and, visibility is so good at, listening to their customers and what their customers, needs are, and good at trying to tweak the product and add what their customers want. So, as part of my journey to selecting Cyber Recruiter and CyberTrain, my firsthand experience with visibility, products, and customer supports was very positive. So I had prior experience to come, before coming here and having that need here, and it just really, helped in making those decisions.
Perfect. I think we're running a little bit low on time, but I wanted to kind of walk through some of these pieces, which was, we obviously met many years ago, and when you first started looking at recruiting and needing some help. So I think that helped at your current location. We obviously have at Visibility lots of experience with Sage HRMS, as did you. It's important that these things integrate so that you can hire from CyberRecruiter into your Sage HRMS and then have the additional information added, and then having that feed automatically and updating CyberTrain, so you're not having to rekey that information and store it separately. I think, when you already commented on this item, which was that there's still a lot of additional features. And I think from our perspective, we call that scalability. So we can help any client that's doing it manually move to a more automated piece, but that's only part of that journey. That, as you said, the journey is continuing into new features, new functions, and new areas, but it's giving you time to do those additional things. You mentioned the affirmative action reporting, and just simplifying that made life easier. And I think on the LMS side, which was new to you at the time, you had prior experience with CyberRecruiter, but realized not only could CyberRecruiter aid Greystone, so could CyberTrain.
Correct.
And I think your point was there's lots of room to grow in both of those. So I think you've commented on this already. And Rita, I want to take a quick moment to thank you for taking time out of your day for this quick interview. I want to thank everybody that's watching the video, to thank them for their time. Hopefully found this helpful. If you have additional needs, or if you would like more information, please go out to visibilitysoftware.com. We have a lot of white papers that'll help justify the expense of providing an LMS or an ATS. We have a lot of webinars, both live and recorded, on the products, but also on selecting solutions. So please come out to Visibility Software and visit us. Again, thank you very much, Rita, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.